My ex-girlfriend's in trouble. I have to go pick her up. My husband said this as he gazed at a woman as if he was drawn to her. I was astonished and dumbfounded by his sudden outburst. It happened on our wedding day, as we were driving to the venue. He slammed on the brakes and stopped, seeming to watch the situation for a while. The woman my husband was looking at was carrying a heavy load of luggage, struggling with it. And then, suddenly flustered, he said to me, "You're in the way. Get out, now." My name is Harper. I'm a 29-year-old nurse. I met my husband Kevin, who is the same age as me, through a friend's introduction. I'm so busy with work, I hardly have time for dating. But if I meet the right person, I'd like to get married. I had said this absurd request to a friend, who then told me, "I know someone perfect for you. I'll bring them over sometime." And she went out of her way to arrange a meeting just for me. At that time, I was working hard as a nurse. I thought I would like a man who could take the lead, someone manly. Kevin was exactly the kind of man I had in mind. He took pride in his work and seemed serious, tackling everything with confidence, which I admired. I hadn't talked much with men outside of work. So I was nervous, but Kevin said, "Being a nurse must be really tough. Especially now, I'd imagine healthcare workers are under a lot of mental and physical stress." And showed concern. Those words were very comforting to me. I said, "Yes. It's tough, but seeing you, Kevin, makes me think I need to strive harder." And he seemed embarrassed. I was drawn not just to his serious side, but also to how he had a cheerful side as well. Our relationship smoothly progressed to marriage. I felt that with him, I could continue my life without changing much, supporting each other. I loved my job, so it was natural for me to continue working after marriage. However, one day, my husband approached me with an angry look, saying, "There's something I want to talk about." I wondered if I had done something to upset him, when he suddenly said, "I want you to quit your job." I was shocked, but tried to remain calm. "Why?" "I love my job, so I don't want to quit." "Did I do something to upset you?" Then, "How do you think it looks when my wife works harder than me? From now on, you quit your job and focus all your energy on housework, and I'll support you, okay?" He commanded in a tone of authority. It was the first time I saw this side of him, and it felt strange. I told him, "If you wanted a housewife, you should have said so before we got married. Then we could have discussed it." He responded quietly, "I've never seen someone so dedicated to their work and striving for perfection. I thought it would be helpful if you became a housewife after we married, since I'm not good at household chores." I got mad and said, "Then why not hire a housekeeper? Or is it that you're fine with anyone who can do perfect housework for no cost?" He replied, "Don't be ridiculous. Of course not. I wouldn't live together if I didn't enjoy being with you." I was very conflicted but decided to try harder since we were newlyweds and I still had feelings for my husband. After some thought, I said, "If that's the reason, I'll try a bit harder with the housework. I don't plan to quit my job. At least wait until you can cover the living expenses for 2 adults on your own before saying such things." And continued to work. Perhaps because he got really upset, he didn't just refrain from doing household chores, he started monitoring everything I did. Naturally, my workload only increased. Being employed, there were days I had to cut corners on housework. Then, as if he had been waiting, he would say I did this wrong or didn't do that, almost triumphantly. Fed up, I told him, "I get that you're not good at housework. It doesn't have to be perfect. but since we're both working, I'd appreciate some help." He sighed in exasperation. "That's why I've been saying I don't want to do housework, because I'm not good at it. Balancing work and housework is tough, so you should just quit your job." And was unwilling to listen. I couldn't stand it anymore, saying, "When will you understand that we can't make ends meet without both incomes? If we lose my salary, we'll barely cover the rent and fixed expenses." But he didn't care. My husband changes the topic quickly whenever it comes to his earnings. He said, "Abigail did things more perfectly, you know. It's surprising how there can be such a difference between women. No matter how good you are at your job, failing at housework, which is a woman's job, means you're failing as a woman. Be thankful to me for marrying you despite your imperfect housework skills." Abigail was the girlfriend my husband had before me. Being compared to an ex-girlfriend after getting married made me angry, but part of me thought there was some truth to his words. Even if I'm somewhat respected at work, as a woman, I lacked appeal. Not just because I was married, but I was aware of my lack of femininity. I knew this about myself, but hearing it from my husband made me even more determined to prove him wrong. However, the reality is we couldn't live on my husband's earnings alone. So, I continued working while becoming more efficient at housework. My husband always looked for chores I hadn't done, but eventually, he had nothing to say because I did everything perfectly. Only then did peace return to our home. One day, we had a dinner planned with both our parents. My mom asked about the wedding, and I spoke enthusiastically about my dreams. "I've been saving up because I always wanted to have a ceremony. I want it to be a glamorous event that everyone enjoys." My suggestion received claps of agreement from my mom and my mother-in-law, Avis, but my husband said, "Do we really need to go all out? Plus, the guests don't care about what we like. They think it's a hassle, worried about the gift money, but go anyway to avoid being called uncaring or bad at maintaining relationships. They just go because they have to. No one is moved by seeing someone else's happiness anyway. Aren't you watching too much drama?" Laughing, he completely dismissed my idea. I had never once thought like my husband at any wedding I attended, so I was angry, thinking such people shouldn't bother attending. My husband went further, saying, "Besides, if you have that much saved up, I'd like a piece of it as a reward for sweating it out all day at work. Yeah, I want a motorcycle. Let's save on the wedding and honeymoon and buy my bike instead." And that's what he did, moving forward with the plan to save as much money as possible to buy his bike. Glancing at my parents, I saw their faces tense. It looked like they were holding back what they wanted to say. That's when the in-laws spoke up. "Kevin, enough is enough. Dismissing your wife's wishes and only thinking about yourself. How can you think of using the money Harper saved for the wedding on a motorcycle just for you?" They were angry. My father-in-law, Lanny, added, "People have different views on weddings, so it's natural for you and Harper to have a difference in opinion. But to outright deny her and then insult her, only wanting the money. Do you realize how ugly that makes you? If you continue like this, you'll be divorced before you even get married." And scolded him. I told my husband, "I've never once been to a wedding where I didn't feel moved or enjoy myself. When I see a happy bride, I naturally tear up, thinking how the groom must cherish his wife, thanking them for the ceremony. Some friends even planned events to ensure the guests enjoyed themselves, and it was truly fun. But you think differently, and that's okay. How about we save on the wedding and spend more on the honeymoon instead?" The in-laws scolding him made me happy, but no matter how much they reprimand him, it means nothing if he's not willing to change. I was ready to compromise and have the wedding his way when he said, "No, it's fine. I'll grant all your wishes. If you liked the weddings you've been to so much, why don't we make it even better than those?" He suddenly became serious. My husband doesn't like being compared to others. And being told by his parents that we might end up divorced seemed to have made him reflect. Our parents looked relieved and advised, "It'll be busy, but try to talk as much as possible. It's wrong to force only one's opinion, but it's also wrong to stay silent. Make sure to express your feelings to each other." Seeing the way her son was behaving, Avis seemed to imply that she knew he would come around. "Way to go, Kevin. I knew if we just talked to you, you'd understand. Look, Harper, how about this cute dress? It suits you so well," she suggested with a smile while flipping through a magazine. "Harper, please don't hesitate to say anything. If money is an issue, we can figure something out," she even offered. Feeling it was too much, I mentioned we would manage within our means, but I was touched by how much the in-laws were looking forward to the wedding. My in-laws had always treated me like their own daughter since we started dating. "If Kevin ever does anything terrible to you, let us know right away," they continued to say. From there, we were able to smoothly proceed with the wedding preparations. My husband became enthusiastic, saying, "We're going to make this a ceremony no one has ever done before." He began researching in books and online, becoming more proactive in making suggestions than I was. "Looking at other people's weddings," Kevin said. "This is nice." Seeing him smile naturally made me feel the beauty of weddings was getting through to him, and I felt reassured. We both like to delve into things until we are satisfied. Meetings with the wedding planner often made the day fly by. Despite being busy, discussions with my husband were peaceful, and those days felt enjoyable. Finally, the day of the wedding arrived. It was a scorching summer day, but the weather was clear, so I felt relieved we could have the ceremony without any issues. My husband was eager too, and we got up early, fully prepared and left. He was driving us to the venue. We would arrive with time to spare if we drove as usual. That's what I was thinking, looking forward to it, when he suddenly hit the brakes. I asked, "What? What happened?" Startled. There was no apparent danger, and I couldn't understand why he had stopped so abruptly. Then he said, "I'll pull over for a bit." And he pulled the car over. Suddenly, he said, "Yeah, I thought so. Abigail is there," and stared at a woman walking on the sidewalk for a while. I was shocked and dumbfounded by his sudden outburst. It seemed Abigail was struggling with heavy luggage, occasionally stopping to rest. From my husband's reaction, I wondered if he was considering helping her because she seemed to be having a hard time. Though I felt complex emotions watching him stare, I was relieved when he started driving again. Honestly, I felt he might still have feelings for his ex-girlfriend since he always compared me to her. My husband compares everything I do to his ex-girlfriend and complains that I'm not good enough. I was worried such a thing wouldn't happen on our wedding day, but it turned out to be an unfounded fear. However, once we lost sight of Abigail after several failed attempts to see her, he pulled the car over again, looked at me, and smiled. "You're in the way, so get out of the car." I was so shocked, I went blank. "What? Why? She didn't even ask you to give her a ride, and you're going to go talk to her? You know it's our wedding day today, don't you?" I asked, but he said, "It's too much for her to carry all that luggage. Just listen to me," and forcefully dragged me out of the car. "You'd better not follow me," he said, and drove off alone. After that, I was too stunned to think and just stood there. I couldn't catch up to the car even if I returned now, and I couldn't call him because my wallet and phone was in the car. I was gradually getting so angry that I didn't feel like having a wedding, but I thought that I would cause trouble if I didn't contact the venue, so I walked towards the venue alone. Even if Kevin didn't show up, I thought I could explain that my valuables were left in the car and the in-laws would help bring them back. Thinking about what to do next, I arrived sooner than expected. Having left home early and the distance not being too much, I managed to arrive on time for our appointment with the venue. However, it was honestly exhausting because I kept walking under the scorching sun without a parasol. As I entered the building and was about to rest, there was my husband, looking utterly dejected. It was understandable that he arrived before me since he was in a car, but why was he here if he went to see Abigail? As I pondered this, Avis seemed to notice me and rushed over in a panic.
Harper! I'm really sorry for our foolish son. It was hot, wasn't it? Are you okay? Here, drink this.
And offered me water. After gratefully accepting the water, I asked my husband, "What happened to Abigail?" Then he bluntly explained,
"She said she didn't need help and ran off. Plus, some guy I don't know shielded Abigail and took her away. So, I had no choice but to come here."
He seemed distant. As I looked on bewildered, the in-laws scolded my husband.
"As we said before, it's unbelievable that you would leave your wife on your wedding day to approach an ex-girlfriend. We don't expect you to be forgiven, but you need to apologize sincerely."
Leaving him utterly disheartened, Avis sadly shared, "Actually, we were too excited and arrived way before the two of you. When Kevin arrived alone, we pressed him about where you were and then understood the situation after hearing the story. I then asked my husband, why didn't you come back for me after Abigail declined? She got really mad at me. Called me a monster. I just lost all motivation to do anything. I figured if I came here, you'd show up eventually, so I thought I'd just wait for you." He responded. Looking closer, I noticed his cheek was swollen and red, later learning that Lanny couldn't hold back and had hit him. As we struggled to shift our mood towards the wedding, Abigail arrived. By her side was an unfamiliar man, introduced as her husband. Abigail's husband glared at Kevin.
"Trying to forcefully get a resisting woman into your car, then running away at the sight of someone's face. I heard from Abigail. Weren't you the one who kept pestering her after you broke up? And it's your wedding day today? Leaving your own wife to hit on your ex is the lowest of the low,"
he said, visibly angry. Abigail then looked at my husband with disdain before turning to me. "We did date, it's true. But we broke up, and I have no interest in him anymore. I never imagined he would leave his wife on his wedding day to approach me. I'm really sorry." I hurried to stop her apology.
"Don't be. The one at fault here is him. Don't apologize."
Relieved by my words, Abigail let out a sigh. My husband, losing his target for anger, glared at me, tears spilling from his eyes.
"If you had just stopped me, this wouldn't have happened. You should have stopped me. Don't you feel any pain seeing me blamed like this?"
Disgusted, I was about to retort that he should take responsibility when Abigail and her husband began berating him. Abigail firmly stated,
"Enough is enough. I kept quiet because the nuisance was only towards me, but now you've bothered not just your wife but also my dear husband. I won't let this go easily."
Her husband also scorned.
"Who do you think you are? Hurting both your wife and another man's wife and then playing the victim?"
I then asked Abigail,
You and your husband did nothing wrong. Instead, we're deeply sorry for the trouble caused by him. Based on his words, he was actually trying to reconcile with you, wasn't he?
She sighed deeply.
Actually, our home and Kevin's family home are quite close. He's ambushed me pretending it was coincidence multiple times, demanding reconciliation. I've always rejected him clearly but quietly, fearing his quick temper. I kept it from my husband, but I regret not telling him sooner.
Before nodding, her husband added,
I understand why my wife couldn't tell me before. Seeing how unreasonable he is, arguing wouldn't have made a difference. I don't blame her.
I felt they were a wonderfully considerate couple, and even thought they were strangers. I was glad that Abigail found such a good person to marry. I desperately apologized to Abigail.
It's okay. If anything, we're the ones who should be sorry. Even when you said you were busy with work, he was imposing on you. I'm truly, deeply sorry.
Then, to Kevin, who still looked unconvinced, I yelled, You should apologize too. Your actions have caused trouble for many people. What are you going to do about it? But he only frowned. It was Abigail's husband who got angry at such a demeanor. No need for apologies. With that look on your face, I can't expect any sincere remorse from you. Anyway, I want nothing to do with you. Promise never to go after another man's wife again. As he yelled, Kevin stepped forward in front of Abigail's husband, his face turning red.
Abigail was with me before she met you. So, I understand her better than you do, right? I want to get back together. If you're lonely being single, I'm open to swapping wives. Let's do that. She's hardworking and has money.
Kevin spoke as if it were a brilliant idea, uttering nonsense. Not only I, but also Abigail and her husband were left speechless by the absurdity of it all. Seeing him talk happily about the day we'd divorce and that he'd marry Abigail made up my mind. Anyway, let's cancel the wedding. I told my husband and apologized to the in-laws.
I'm sorry. I know you were looking forward to today, but as you can see, I cannot marry him. I'm sorry for turning out this way after all your kindness.
Then the in-laws tearfully apologized, saying,
You've done nothing wrong, and we think you're making the right decision. It's our own child, but we think he's truly foolish. We're sorry for all the trouble.
Looking around calmly, I saw many venue staff members watching us. Checking the time, relatives and friends were soon to arrive. Feeling guilty about sending a cancellation notice now, I spoke with the staff to change the wedding to a dinner party, deciding not to accept any gifts. The venue staff, accustomed to handling crises, arranged the dinner party efficiently, though they cast blameful looks at my husband, for which I was grateful. My husband, unconcerned about the attendees, kept cheerfully talking about his new life with Abigail while I was talking to the staff. Seeing him able to talk such nonsense in front of Abigail and her husband, who looked at him with disgust, was appalling. After the explanation, I went back to my husband and told him I agreed to the divorce. As expected, he was not even slightly sad but instead delighted to accept. Right then, guests started arriving. My parents, in-laws, and I kept apologizing to everyone, asking them to at least enjoy the meal, making an awkward excuse. I never intended to share such a ridiculous story with the guests, but my husband happily announced the wedding cancellation and our divorce. The people who arrived on the dot were confused by the sudden cancellation. Moreover, when questioned by the guests, my husband calmly continued his delusions about finding true love and marrying the person he truly loved. Abigail!
This is beyond not making sense anymore. Please, run away with your husband now.
I quietly pulled Abigail aside and handed her over to a staff member, and they quickly left through the back door. Just when I thought things would calm down, my husband, noticing Abigail's absence, flew into a rage. Seeing them walking outside the window, he started chasing after them in a panic.
Abigail, wait. Come home with me, not with that guy. Enough. What's wrong with you? Stay away from Abigail and get lost.
My husband was easily stopped by Abigail's husband as he dashed out of the venue. Then my dad and Lanny caught up and restrained him, dragging him back inside the venue. I followed, apologizing to Abigail and her husband repeatedly as I saw them off. The attendees, having witnessed the whole sequence, were thoroughly dismayed, leaving the venue telling my husband he was the worst. While feeling sorry, there was a part of me that felt it couldn't be helped since my husband's rampage was unstoppable. In the end, only my friends, my parents, and the in-laws remained, showing concern for me and helping me regain some peace. After the cleanup was done in the heavy atmosphere, my husband again said,
"Now that the cleanup is done, it's all good, right? Then I'm going back to Abigail's house."
Saying that, he tried to leave the venue, so the in-laws, in tears, forcibly put him in a car and took him home. A few days later, with the in-laws present, I had my husband sign the divorce papers, and we officially divorced. His belongings at home were either carried out by the in-laws or sent via mail. It was a hectic time, but it finally ended. One day, I went to a town in the suburbs to refresh and coincidentally met Abigail and her husband at a shopping mall. I was worried about how they were doing after everything, so when I asked, they shared their updates. Apparently, my ex-husband hadn't learned his lesson and had been lurking around the places he met Abigail, and even stalking her at home and work. My ex-husband had been saying,
"We're still in a relationship, right? You were just playing hard to get, weren't you?"
and continued to demand a reconciliation, cherry-picking facts to suit him. Finally, Abigail consulted with the police and initiated a lawsuit against him. Thinking he did nothing wrong, my ex-husband spouted delusions even in front of the police and was deemed a dangerous person. Immediate action was taken, and he was issued a restraining order against approaching Abigail. Surprisingly, he lost his momentum as soon as the restraining order was issued. It was only after facing legal action that he realized Abigail truly detested him. Since then, he has stayed away from Abigail's surroundings. It doesn't matter much to me, but if this means he won't bother Abigail and her husband anymore, I'm relieved. Abigail continued.
"Actually, we're moving close to my husband's parents' home soon. We came today to buy cleaning supplies for the move. Harper, please take care of yourself too."
As I apologized and saw them off, they left with smiles. Watching their backs, I silently wished them happiness. This resolved the issue. The moment I thought to delete my ex-husband's contact, he called me. I had kept his contact for property distribution matters, but never expected him to call. I truly didn't want to answer. But I had just met Abigail and her husband. So I answered, slightly anxious.
"Can we just forget about the divorce? Living alone made me realize how important you are to me. Let's try living together again, cooperatively,"
he began to say. After pondering his words for a good dozen seconds, I calmly replied,
"You must be joking. We're strangers now. No matter what you say, I have no intention of remarrying you. Please, don't contact me ever again."
Then I hung up, setting his number to auto-reject after he kept calling back. He continued to make a fuss on the other end of the phone, but now I was completely free of him. He tried calling from different numbers for a while, but as I continued to ignore them and changed my phone and number, I finally found peace. Since the house was sold, there was no issue even if he showed up unannounced, and there was no way for him to contact me. Abigail and her husband had already moved, and if he showed up at my parents' home, they would be furious and chase him away. The in-laws, having given up on my ex-husband after this incident, decided to sell the house. This house is close to Abigail's parents' house, so we decided to sell it now. Seeing Avis and Lanny tear up was hard, but I wished for them to live happily, far from my ex-husband. Without a home to return to, Kevin must be wandering alone now. Without knowing each other's whereabouts, and having caused a scene at the wedding, he was isolated by rumors among friends and at work. A friend who worked at the same company said his ostracization at work was severe. Truly a case of reaping what one sows. I hope he genuinely reflects on his actions. As for me, I started a new life from scratch in a new place. I had an opportunity and transferred to a new hospital. My current workplace allows for a balanced work life, enabling me to juggle household chores and work. I'm happy to engage in fulfilling work in a new environment, where I'm also building good relationships. Although divorced, I'm far happier than when I was living with my ex-husband. I've rediscovered my love for my job. I hope for continued peaceful days.